Hi, I'm Debbie from Off Topic, Things I Didn't Plan to Learn. The last video I was talking about moving into my new cabin in Gracia, Costa Rica. Well, I was sitting in my new cabin on my computer and I was scrolling along and I saw something come up on the screen. It said, "The turtles need saving. We need people to help save the turtles." And the next thing I knew, I saw one in Spanish that said the same thing. And I thought, wow, they really do. I'm going to check this out. So I wrote down the telephone number to call, and I gave the person a call. And I said, "Hello, I'm Debbie. I'm interested in helping the turtles." And the guy said, "Hi, I'm Fidel." He said, "Tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you know about turtles?" And I said, "Well, I have been in a different turtle refuge before in Southeast Asia, and I helped to rescue 16 not rescue, but I helped 16 mother turtles when they laid their eggs. We scooped up all the eggs and we took them up and we put them into the sand and buried them and saved them until they hatched and so on." And I explained the whole thing, and he said, "Well, great, that's what we do here too." So he said, "That's wonderful." And he asked me how old I was, and I told him I was 63. And he said, "Okay, well, when can you come?" And I said, "I can come right away." And so it was in Montezuma. I had no idea where Montezuma was, but I acted like I knew. So this is just how goofy I am, but I just grabbed what he told me to bring. He told me the kind of clothes I needed to bring and my own sheets. I threw them into my backpack and I grabbed a little bit of money and I went down to the road and I started walking to the bus stop. When I got to the bus stop, I didn't even know which direction I was going to be going when I got there. I didn't know where Montezuma was. I had no clue. So I asked some people which direction would I go to get to Montezuma, and they pointed. And so I took a bus going that way. So when I got on the bus, then I talked to the people on the bus and I asked them about going to Montezuma, and they told me that I had to go to Punta Arenas first, and then I had to take a ferry across the bay and go on another bus in Paquera to Montezuma. And I said, "Okay, great." So I didn't realize that just getting to Punta Arenas was going to be a tricky situation, but it was tricky on the bus. I had to take many different buses. I had to get off at many different stops. I had to get a lot of help from different people. Like when I got off the bus at the first stop that I got off in Naranjo, I asked the people there on the bus. I said, "How do I get to San Ramon?" And I didn't know enough Spanish to say the question correctly, so I just said, "¿Dónde es San Ramon?" And so then a lady took me by the hand, and she took me 4 blocks to a different bus stop, and she told me to wait at that bus stop, and I would get the bus for San Ramon. So I did. I got the bus there, and when I got to San Ramon, I got off the bus there, and then I said I wanted to go to Punta Arenas, and people once again were very kind to me, and they showed me where I had to go to that bus. Actually, it was a bus station I had to go to, and I had to buy a ticket to get to Punta Arenas. Now, when I got to Punta Arenas, it turned out that I had missed the last ferry for that day, so I could not take a ferry to Punta Arenas. So I had to stay overnight in Punta Arenas. I had to find a hotel. So I found a little hotel and I stayed overnight, and the next day I got up bright and early and I went to the the place where the ferry was and got on. And I think the ferry cost something like $1 or $2. It was really cheap. It was a great ferry ride. It was like over an hour to go there, and it was a huge ferry, and you could sit on the inside if you wanted to, and they had drinks in there. They had I'm pretty sure they had a bar. I wasn't drinking anything, but they had other kinds of drinks. They had food. um, I think they had popcorn. They had different kinds of snacks. And then on the outside, if you wanted to sit on the outside of the boat or stand on the outside, there was plenty of room there too as well. So I stood on the outside pretty much the whole way, and I really enjoyed it because you could see dolphins as we were crossing across the channel. It was really fun. I loved it. So we got to the other side, and then there was a bus that said Montezuma. So I got on the bus, and on the bus were a ton of people from all over the world. And there were people with surfboards, people in bathing suits. The people that got on were from all different countries, and there were lots and lots of young people, volunteers. They were going to different places, like they were going to bird rescues, different tropical bird rescues, or they were going to a place called Santa Teresa for surfing, or they had just come from some kind of an animal rescue in another part of the country, and they were all just nonstop. Blah, 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 blah. Everybody was talking with each other about all the places that they had been and where they were going, and it was really, really fun. And the bus was like an old school bus at this point. And so when we were on it, it was kind of interesting because the people that had standing room only, they were having to practically surf their way into the towns that we were passing through to get to Montezuma. So we got all the way there, and then I called Fidel and told him, I called him in the town before that and let him know that I was in Cobano, and I said, I'm in Cobano now, and he said, okay, I'm gonna get up to the corner to meet you when you get there. So when I got to Montezuma, I got off, and he told me to meet him in the park, and I did. And so then he said, okay, we've got a long trip ahead of us. He said, we've got to go through along the shore, cross all these rocks, through the jungle, and it's a long trip, and it's pretty far. So, and we're going to run. We're going to go as fast as we can. So off we went, and it was a difficult trip because there were lots of rocks that we had to go over. Some of them were giant, the size of very large boulders that we had to pass over. We got to Montezuma, the part that we were going to. It's called Romelia, Refugio Romelia in Montezuma. And so at the entrance, there was the sign right there. And then we made a left-hand turn through the jungle, back up to a house that looked like the Swiss Family Robinson house. It was really cool. It was an old house that had been built. It was 2 floors. It was really cool. The bottom was all open air, and it had a little kitchen in it to the side. And then upstairs was the dormitory. And up there were bunk beds. And all the people that helped at the turtle refuge slept in the dormitory. So they showed me where I would be going, and they told me to pick a bunk that was empty. And I put all my stuff on the bunk, put my sheet out, and then I went back downstairs. And Montezuma is at the beach, so it's a lot hotter than in Gracia. It was very, very hot. And in at the turtle refuge, there was no electricity, so everything that we had was just solar energy if we had any. Um, so I got to meet all the people that were at the refuge. There was a girl there that was like 21 years old from Colorado, and I was from Colorado too, so that was really cool. There was a guy that was from Oxford University from England, and he was like 21 named James. There was a guy from Spain. I think he was studying to be a doctor. All of these people were young people. There was a guy from Ireland named Owen, and it was not spelled like the regular Owen. It was spelled like something like Eoghn or something like that. Um, and then there was Fidel, who was from Costa Rica. Um, Let me think. I think at the time that was all that was there when I got there. Um, well, we sat down at a table and we ate our meal, and it was rice and beans, which is the traditional food for Costa Rica. And they told me, they go, Debbie, you're going to have rice and beans for every meal here that you're here. Okay? I said, fine, that's great. So we had rice and beans every time. And there were caretakers that were there. And the caretakers, they lived in a little house, a very tiny little house made out of wood. And one of them made the food, and the other one took care of the property and did things like that. Got the food and stuff. He had a horse, and he would get things on horseback. So anyway, I found out what the different jobs were. They said, okay, every night we start doing our nightly beach patrol at 11 o'clock. And so we're going to put 2 people on beach patrol. You're going to go tonight at 11. You're going to go with Owen. And so you're going to need to get up, wake up, and be prepared to leave and be down at the beach by 11 o'clock together. Okay? And they said, it is dangerous. It is a dangerous job because there's poachers that want to come and steal the turtle eggs. They'll sell the turtle eggs for a lot of money because people like to eat them. And they'll destroy all of the turtle eggs that we've already got stored in the ground right now that we're waiting to hatch. And you're going to be walking up and down the beach. You're going to be wearing only a flashlight that you're not going to be able to turn on, a headlamp, but you're not going to be able to turn it on. But that's just like for an emergency. And you're not going to be having a flashlight. You're not going to be having any kind of light. Because if you shine the light, then that can really distract the turtles when they're coming up to the shore. So we don't have any kind of distraction at all with lights. So they also told me that there was a place on the beach that each of us would be spending time at. It had a little hammock in it. It was called the hatchery, and that's where the turtles would hatch next to it, and we would guard them 24/7. So there'd be somebody in that hatchery all night long and all day long. Different people would take turns doing that. So they said, here's our schedule list, and they had a whiteboard with different schedules of different people, different times. And they said, the rest of the time, okay, you're going to need to sleep whenever you can. You're also going to be on beach patrol. We're all on beach patrol where we're going to clean up trash. They said a lot of trash washes up on shore from different countries even. From the tsunami, there was a whole bunch of trash that washed up. it washed up while I was there, as a matter of fact. Vacuum cleaners, soccer balls, chairs, pieces of tables, all kinds of toys, all washed up on the shore. Um, so we had lots of different jobs to do while we were there. So we were not really having fun time too often, but we did a lot of work. We also made new turtle nets um, that held in the baby turtles. It's another thing that we did also some of the days. We had to um, get those ready in case we needed more. During the year, they would expect to have maybe uh, 35 or 40 different nests at a time. And so that was what we did while we were there. So I got ready for the first night. I had to sleep in the daytime. I had to take some time to take some naps. And then at 11 o'clock, I got up. Before 11, I got up and I went down to meet Owen. And Owen and I took the path down to the beach. And when I got out there, I was absolutely shocked out of my mind. I had never seen anything like that in my life. The entire water was bioluminescent. Bioluminescent waves were washing up. They were the color of like a beautiful aquamarine blue. All the waves were coming in like this. Absolutely gorgeous. And I said to Owen, "What is that? What is that?" And he said, "That is bioluminescent waves." And I said, "I've never seen that. I never heard of it." And he said, "It's a special thing. It doesn't happen all the time, but it is very, very beautiful." So he goes, "But watch this. This is even cooler." He said, "Kick your feet." And when I kicked my feet, gold sprinkled from the sand. The sand just turned to gold. So we were walking down the beach together, looking for mother turtles coming up to nest for hours and hours all night long along these bioluminescent waves, kicking up golden sand. The palm trees were on the right, the left-hand side. The water was on the right. We're walking a long, long distance, half a mile down the beach to the other end and coming back again, and then just enjoying the beautiful stars with the palm trees and the bioluminescent waves and the sound of the waves. It was the most spectacular thing I have ever seen in my life. And it only happened that one night, and for me, it was amazing. So we were looking for turtles to come up and hatch their eggs, and then we were going to take all the eggs. We were going to put them into a bucket, count them all as we're putting them in. Then we were going to take them up to the sand next to our hatchery, go inside there. It was all enclosed in a big fence, so it was protected from wild animals and from poachers. And we were going to bury the eggs all in one place, mark them with a stick, and we had all kinds of different measurement things to use to tell exactly where the eggs were laid, how many were laid, and so on. And so that's what we did. We looked for the mothers to come, and we just walked back and forth and back and forth, and it was just absolutely fabulous. Then we went back to our place when we were finished, and we had to take a shower. It was a cold shower because there wasn't any electricity or anything. There was, well, the water was relatively hot though because it was at the beach. So it wasn't really, really cold, but it was invigorating. Then I would go back up, get into my little bunk bed, and go back to sleep. And get up the next day and go down, and we would go down and check to see if any of the turtles had hatched overnight. And if they had, we would put them into a bucket. We would count them all, put them into a bucket. We would take them down and we would release them so that they could walk to the water themselves. The mother turtles lay the eggs in the exact same spot where they were born. And the baby turtles need to know where they were born also. So we have to walk them down and release them there and let them walk back into the water. And so if turtles would start to go over to the right or the left, we would kind of like try to guide them back toward the water. And then sometimes we would start to swim out with them as they were going out. And it was really, really fun. The average number of turtles would be maybe about 110 turtles that would be hatched in a nest. And it was really exciting. Sometimes there would be a twin egg, and sometimes there would be some eggs that didn't hatch, and we had to count how many did not hatch, how many did hatch, and everything about that we could tell about the turtle eggs. So it was really a wonderful experience, and something that I never intended to learn was about the bioluminescent waves. That was absolutely the thrill of my life. Thank you for watching. Tune in next time. I'm going to have another exciting story. I'm going to start talking about tutoring English in Costa Rica. And it's pretty neat. Okay. Thank you. See you later.